What's up everyone? Today we're going to talk about PowerShell and regular expressions or regex. I'll show you a couple of different examples of how to use regex within PowerShell. It might be a script or just a one-liner that you're running. I recently wrote an article about this. I'll link to that down in the video description below. And as always, this code is available out in my GitHub and that will be linked below also. My name is Jeff. You're watching Jeff Brown Tech. Let's go ahead and get started. To talk about first, what exactly is regex? Regex is a way to represent a string using literal or special characters called meta characters, and you can use this format to search for strings inside of another string, inside of a file, basically parse information as needed. If you're coming from the Linux background, it would be similar to using grep. Now, I am not a regex expert. I have done some regular expression work in the past when I did Skype for Business and Microsoft Teams things, when normalizing phone numbers that people may dial into their phone and, turning a 7-digit phone number into 10 digits or adding country codes, things like that. But as far as using it for strings, I don't use it that often. Maybe some PowerShell parameter validation, which I've talked about before in another video. There are plenty of resources out there, YouTube, other blog articles, ChatGPT. You could go to it and say, I need a regular expression for this, and it'll probably give you something really close. If you want to play around with regular expressions and learn more about them in some tutorials, a website I often use is regex101.com. I'll include a link to it down below. Anyway, let's go back to the code and let's start talking about regular expressions. The first example is using select string. And we are going to use select string and a pattern to find certain lines inside of a log file. Over here on the right, I have a log file. It's got some different entries in it for info, warning, and errors. And let's pretend this file is a lot bigger and I want to go through and find all the lines that start with error. Let's take a look at our command we're going to run on line 2. We're going to run get content. We are going to give it the path log file and then pipe that over to select string and give it a pattern. Let's take a look at our first regex pattern here. The caret symbol there, the up arrow, means we're looking at the beginning of the line. So we don't care if error occurs within anywhere else in the line. I'm only concerned with when it begins at the beginning of the line. And then I have an all caps here, error, and that's the string that I'm looking for. We'll take this line and go ahead and execute it. And you can see it outputted 2 lines here. They are exactly the same. Ideally, a real log file that might have different errors listed in them. And if we look at our actual log file, there's line 9 and line 15. It only occurred in the file twice. Combining select string with a regex pattern is really powerful if you want to search through a file for specific strings, error messages, whatever else you need. Continuing on, let's take a look at the match operator and the automatic variable called matches. On line 6, we have an array here of email addresses. You'll notice different email addresses here of domains. We have Contoso, Fabricam, Parts Unlimited. Find specific email addresses for a domain. In this case, it's going to be contoso.com. On line 21, I have a variable defined for pattern of the pattern that we want to match. Let's go through the regex on this real quick. Again, we have the caret symbol, the up arrow, meaning we are looking at the beginning of a line. Then we have our first capture group. You'll see what these capture groups are coming up later, but that's within the parentheses there. We then have a period, meaning we're looking for any character. We want to match any character. So underscore dashes probably includes a lot of things you wouldn't find in valid email addresses, but we're not worrying about that right now. Then we have an asterisk, meaning we want to find 0 to unlimited occurrences of any character. Probably should be 1 to unlimited, but again, not looking for perfection here, just getting something quick. Outside of that first capture group, we have just a literal @, no other special characters. It doesn't mean anything else because that's what an email address looks like. You have the username @ something. Then we have our second capture group in parentheses, and we're literally just looking for contoso.com. So that's what we want to match on. And then we have the $, meaning we're only looking for this at the end of the line. So sandwiching this between the caret, the up arrow, and the $, means we are only looking for that on the whole line that we're searching. We're not interested in anything else. The line that we're searching has to just be an email address. There cannot be any other strings or spaces around it. We'll go ahead and bring our pattern into our session. And then what you can do right here on line 24, take your email addresses array. We'll run it through the match operator. And give it the pattern that we're wanting to match on. And if we run that, we get back two responses, Jeff and Angela. Look back at our array that we defined here. If I highlight contoso.com, we can see it matched those two. So you don't even have to run through like a for each, checking each one that matches. It'll just compare everything in that array and output the results. Along with the match operator comes the matches automatic variable. This is a variable you don't have to define it. It's automatically included whenever you do a match operation. And what we can do here is iterate through our array starting on line 28 for each email and email addresses. And we'll say if the email matches the pattern, so our current item that we're looking at, we're going to create a custom object and split that email address into a couple of different parts. On line 31 is the first attribute, which is the whole email address. And if we look at the matches variable and then the 0 index, that's the whole email address. And then lines 32 and 33, we have the username set to index 1 and then domain at index 2. These match up with our capture groups that we created in our pattern inside of each parentheses. And then we're just going to output the object. Let's run through this for each real quick and see what it outputs. And here we have email address, then we have username, and then we have domain. Now let's break down exactly what this matches variable is doing when we run it through a match operator, and hopefully maybe this will make a little more sense. I have a note here just saying matches is a hash table containing the results of the most recent successful regular expression match operation when using -match. The first entry in that hash table contains the entire match string. So whatever matched your pattern is going to be in that first element. And then matches 1, 2, and so on match any strings inside those capture groups inside of your regular expression. Goes on to say the index corresponds to the order of the pattern capture groups. Let's run through each part individually. Let's go back to our email addresses array. We're going to look at the first element, which is going to be my email address here, jeff@contoso.com. And let's match it to our pattern. And it does output true, just saying it does match the pattern. So let's go back to matches and look at the full hash table. And we can see several key value pairs here. We have 0, which is the full email address that it matched. Number 1 is then Jeff, which matches our first capture group back from our pattern, this part right here. And then we have number 2, which is contoso.com, and that is what is inside the second parentheses, just a literal match to contoso.com. And then you can output each part individually. If we just look again at 0, that's the full one. Matches is then the username, and matches 2 is the domain name because it matches up with our capture groups. This is useful, just like in this example, if you're wanting to go through a list of email addresses, find a specific email address, and then break apart each part of the string into the username and the domain name. Definitely other ways of doing it without using regular expressions. You could split the string on the @. You could do like wildcard, contoso.com, things like that. But using regex and the match operator kind of just takes care of a lot of it automatically if you set up your pattern correctly. Next, we have the replace operator, and you can use regex to replace parts of your string that you're looking at. For example, let's say you have a phone number here that somebody's inputted. It has parentheses around the area code, spaces, and a dash between the different parts of the phone number. You can use a regex to replace any non-digit characters. So we have our phone number here in our example. We'll put that into our session. And then we are going to say phone number and then our replace operator. /D represents any non-digit characters. And then we're going to replace it with absolutely nothing. So this last part of it here is just 2 double quotes with nothing in between them. And if we run that, you can see right down here, we have 555, 456, 7890 without any of the special characters or spaces in it. Finally, we can use ValidatePattern and regex to make sure data given into our parameters on our scripts or functions matches what we're expecting. In this case, I have a function called sendMessage. We have ValidatePattern for a basic email address. And then on line 67, we're just going to output the email address. Let's bring this in here. sendMessage. I have a previous example here. I have an underscore instead of an @ sign. So this is going to come back and give me an error. You can customize this error message inside the validate pattern definition. I have another video where I talked about different ways you can validate your parameter input. I'll include a link to it down below. That does it for this video. There are lots of other ways you can use regex inside of PowerShell and other operations. These were just a couple examples that I came across and what I would most likely use them for. If you use regex in creative ways or anything like that, leave a comment down below. Always great discussion for other people to see. As always, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.